You're listening to Mid-Morning Matters on MarlowFM 97.5.
Now, I'd love to welcome my first guest, Saffron Rogerson, to the studio. Saffron, good morning.
Morning.
It's your first time on MarlowFM, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Have you had to travel far to get here today?
I live east side of Oxford, so not far, really, just Tame direction.
Tame, oh, that's not too far. We have quite a few listeners up that neck of the woods, so it works very well. So you're here because you are a nutritional therapist?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I don't exactly know what a nutritional therapist is, so maybe you can enlighten me and our listeners as well.
It is a complicated area. A lot of people don't really understand what we do. So there are nutritional therapists, there are nutritionists, and there are dietitians.
Right.
And although basically we are all working around diet and nutrition, we work in different areas. So dietitians do a different degree, and they generally work in the NHS, and you see them as part of the public sector. Nutritional therapists do something very similar, but we're in the private sector. So whereas you might be on a waiting list to see a dietitian through the NHS, you might have to wait a while, and when you go and see them, you won't have that much time with them. Because we're in the private sector, we have the luxury of spending an hour with our clients, and they generally get to see us much quicker. But then, of course, we're in the private sector, so you have to pay. And then, of course, you get nutritionists, and they're slightly different. They tend to work for large companies like Kellogg's, formulating recipes and formulating the nutrition for branded products. So those are the three areas, really. And
they're less involved with advising individual people?
Yeah, so they generally do sort of population diet, whereas dietitians and nutritional therapists will focus on the individual.
Right. So you work with people that come and visit you specifically to get advice?
Yeah, on a whole range of subjects. And that's another area with nutritional therapy that people don't understand, is that how many specific areas you can actually help them with. With fertility, that's my specialism. I help couples that are struggling to conceive, either with IVF assisted or unassisted. So I can help with fertility, sleep issues, IBS, digestive issues are another major problem. But because I also work at a gym as well, I see a lot of people with high blood pressure, high blood glucose. So food and diet can help in a whole range of areas that people don't automatically make the link with.
Right. I can well understand that. Do people normally come to you of their own, I don't know, of their own free will, but their own decision to come, or are they referred to you by a GP, for example?
No, GPs can refer us, and it's something that's becoming more frequent. But because on the one hand they have dietitians that they can refer to freely, people expect free treatment through the NHS. So although a GP can recommend us, they won't necessarily come to us because there's that leap between getting free service from your GP and then paying to see a professional nutritional therapist. But GPs can recommend us, and more are doing so.
And is it good? Are you happy to have GP referrals?
Absolutely, yeah.
And apart from that, how do you get to your clients? How do you make people aware of your presence?
It's difficult because like I say, people don't necessarily appreciate what we can do for them. So if they go into a search engine and they might look up symptoms of high blood pressure or how can I help with blood pressure, they won't necessarily go nutritional therapy, high blood pressure. And it's really through search engines that they're aware of us. We do marketing, same as any other sole traders, but it's getting that awareness out there to the public that actually we can help them, and then they will come and look for us.
Right. That's amazing stuff. I know you work with people with specific concerns, but you also must have some general thoughts on what people in the whole population can do to improve their diet and their nutrition.
Yeah, so I see people for many different reasons. And invariably, the three things that I'll recommend for them, whether it is for fertility or lowering blood pressure or lowering blood glucose or even for sports recovery, is one, we don't get enough omega-3 in our diet. We're an island nation, but we have very little oily fish in our diet. It's recommended that you get 3 to 4 portions a week in order to get sufficient omega-3. Omega-3 is an essential fatty acid that we need in our diet. It helps reduce inflammation, it helps reduce pain. It's important for hormone synthesis and neurotransmitter action. But we just don't get enough of it. So I would recommend that most people supplement with a good brand. It's not one that you can do cheaply because of the oxidation, and if you get exposed to light or heat during the manufacturing process, it can break down. So it's important to get a good brand, or get your 3 or 4 portions of oily fish. For vegans and vegetarians, it's much more difficult because they're looking at plant sources, and there are a few of those. Vegetarians and vegans can go to algae as a supplement, or otherwise they're looking at flaxseed and walnut seed, really, is one of the few sources of omega-3. The other thing that I recommend to people as well is people just don't get enough fruit and vegetables in their diet. They just really don't. You need the wide breadth to get all the micronutrients that they provide, plus the fibre. Apples, for example, are a great example. You get vitamin C to help with your immune response. You get pectin, which is a soluble fibre, helps lower cholesterol. And you get quercetin to help with hay fever because it lowers antihistamine. So if people are not getting a breadth of fruit and vegetables, they're missing out on all these micronutrients. The government recommends 5 a day, but the reason why the government specify 5 a day is because that's easily achievable. Most people can get 5 portions of fruit and veg a day if they just think about it. But really, in order to get the health benefits, you're really looking at 7 a day, which again is achievable. It might take a bit more planning, but you can still do it. And to really get the health benefits, you're looking at 10 a day. And that's not necessarily, 10 apples. That could be half an apple or a couple of bits of broccoli. It's the breadth as opposed to the volume.
Yeah, 10 a day would have to be quite a lot of veg as well, because that would be rather too much fruit, wouldn't it? Maybe too much sugar in there, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so
just fruit.
Ideally, I think people can get too concerned about the ratio, but ideally the ratio would be 2 fruits, 5 vegetables, because there is the sugar thing. There is, you're still perpetuating the sweet tooth if you have too much fruit. But the benefit of fruit is it's easily transportable, and you can put it in your handbag and you can take it with you. Yeah. Not so much a head of broccoli.
No, that's true. Just an email question coming from Mark in High Wycombe. Mark, thank you for your call. Thank you for your question. He says, is it true that kiwi fruit is good for eyesight? Have you heard that kiwi fruit contains a compound that's good for eyesight?
No, I understood it was good for sleep because it contains tryptophan, which helps produce melatonin. I presume... No, I hadn't. It's got lots of soluble fibre in there again. It's got pectin in there like apples, and it's got an awful lot of vitamin C. Yeah. And vitamin C is an antioxidant that you need for good eyesight, so maybe it stems from that. But no, that's a new one on me.
Okay. I mean, I love kiwi fruit. Am I wrong, by the way? Because I always eat the whole kiwi fruit, everything, the skin.
Oh, no, definitely.
The core, the everything.
Yeah.
I wash it and that's it, and then it goes straight into my mouth.
No, that's a good thing. So you get more fibre. You've got the soluble fibre on the inside, you've got the insoluble fibre on the outside, as long as you wash it. Right. Some skins, not such a good idea, but no, definitely do that.
Okay, so Mark, the answer to the question is we hadn't actually heard, or Saffron hadn't actually heard that kiwi fruit is specifically good for eyesight, but it's certainly good for other things anyway. So
absolutely.
Yeah, even if it isn't, don't stop taking the kiwi fruit.
No, 1 year 7 a day.
So we're settling on 7 a day, are we?
Yes.
So we talked about fruit and veg for just sort of general population for everybody. Is there anything you want to say about meat, and how about vegetarians?
So vegetarians, the thing with meat as a protein source is there's about 20 amino acids that meat breaks down to, all proteins break down to. Of 11 of those, we have to have them in our diet. They're called essential amino acids. Most meat sources, dairy, seafood, they contain all the essential amino acids. Right. So your average carnivore, omnivore, is going to get everything they need. Vegetarians can as well because they've got dairy sources, and those are also complete protein foods. Where it gets complex is with vegans. They can get all the essential amino acids, but there's only a few foods that contain them in one product. I'm thinking of buckwheat and quinoa. Those are essential. Those are complete
proteins.
Complete proteins. But otherwise, vegans need to look at something called protein combining, amino acid combining. So they need to look at the 3 groups of seeds and nuts, grains and pulses, and they need to make sure over a 24-hour period they eat from one of those groups at least once, and then they'll make sure they've got the wide range of amino acids.
All right. For a non-meat eater but not a vegan, eggs are a complete protein, are they?
Eggs are complete protein. Yeah, they're brilliant. And that whole thing that used to be that you had to limit eggs because of cholesterol, that's not so true now. Because within the yolk, it also contains lecithin, which helps break down the cholesterol. So it's got a natural sort of inhibitor. And also the amount of cholesterol you get in your diet doesn't necessarily directly affect the cholesterol in your blood sugar, in your blood levels.
Right. We've got a question in from Maria. Maria's in Kettering, so obviously you're listening online. Maria wants to know if she has lots of eggs. She has them in omelettes as well as just boiled and scrambled. Is there a limit that she should be thinking about?
No, like I said, the whole thing of too many eggs raising cholesterol levels is considered to be old hat now. But what I would say is that any diet needs to be diverse. And if you are relying on eggs as your only protein source, then you'll be missing out on zinc and iron in beef, for example, or the micronutrients that you would get in quinoa. So eggs in and of themselves are great. They've got fat-soluble vitamins in there, you've got good protein, but you need to make sure that you're getting a diverse range of food.
Right. So I think you're talking about, you're honing in on now is getting a balanced diet. I mean, we talk about a balanced diet, don't we? Do we mean by that just a simple, an appropriate ratio between proteins, carbs and fats, or is there more to a balanced diet than that?
Again, I think people get too caught up looking at the macronutrients, the proteins, the fats, the carbohydrates. You do need all of those in your diet. People that go on very low carbohydrate diets, for example, might find themselves struggling to sleep because you need those carbohydrates in order to create serotonin and so forth. So when we say a balanced diet, from my point of view, I perceive that as a whole 80-20. So 80% of the time you're having a good breadth of whole foods, unprocessed foods, and in the other 20% of the time you can enjoy yourself, have the odd bit of junk food, get a pizza in at the weekend. But that is what I would consider a balanced diet. As long as the 80% is good, wholesome, unprocessed foods, whether that's meat, eggs, vegetables, whole grain bread, and then the other 20% of the time you can relax. That's what I would consider to be a balanced diet.
I mean, having done this show now for a couple of years, it's amazing how many times in health and fitness people say, yes, it's an 80-20 rule. I mean, 80-20 rule applies to just about everything in fitness.
Yeah.
If you do it the right way 80% of the time, then 20% of the time you can afford to be a bit less perfect.
Absolutely, yeah. Nobody wants to be neurotic.
That's true. Saffron, tell us about your website. If people want to find out a little bit more about what's going on and what you do, and indeed how to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Okay, my website is thislifenutrition.co.uk, as in we only have the one life, this life. And they can find my contact details on there. I think you mentioned we had a message from a lady asking about fertility. There's an awful lot of information about nutrition for fertility. That is my specialism, as well as nutrition for blood pressure and IBS. That's another big issue as well, and a lot of that information is on my website.
That's brilliant. So its website again is
thislifenutrition.co.uk.
thislifenutrition.co.uk. Yeah, as you said, we did have a question come in by email from Erica, who wants to know about fertility and your advice on nutrition for increasing fertility.
Okay, so fertility is a very complex area. We often don't take into consideration the fact as well it's not just the woman. The woman tends to feel the pressure and the blame and the circumstances are on her. But actually there's two people in there, and generally nutrition looks at both partners. Men, for example, I've had clients before now that do a lot of running, going back to the sports and the whole 80-20 thing. And it's very important that testicular temperature doesn't get too hot, whereas running, cycling, all increases the temperature. And I actually advise them, as well as making nutritional changes, to go weight training, for example. So weight training is a great way of raising testosterone levels, which has a massive impact on sperm quality and sperm numbers. So I recommend them to do that. But on the female side as well, there are different things that we can look at. So again, the difference between the two sexes, on the one hand, the most important antioxidant for men, because sperm die off a lot and they're very susceptible to free radical damage, is vitamin C. So men need a lot of vitamin C. Whereas for women, the most important antioxidant is beta-carotene, which you find in red fruits and vegetables like peppers and oranges and squashes, because within the follicular fluid around the egg, that's where it's most concentrated. So it can get very complex and very specific to either sex. But it does come back down to getting your 7 a day. If you're getting your 7 a day, you're going to get your beta-carotene, you're going to get your vitamin C. It's about making sure you eat a healthy diet. But what I also like about nutrition for fertility is that quite often, especially when people are going down the assisted fertility route, they sometimes feel like all of their control has been taken away from them and that they're powerless and they get given the drugs to take at a specific time and the man has to do his thing at a specific time. Whereas I think if you give them things to do nutritionally, it makes them feel like they have the power back. It makes them feel slightly more in control. At the end of the day, it's going to be the same nutritional recommendations pretty much whether you're going for assisted fertility or unassisted. So if you're trying yourself and it doesn't work, those nutritional changes you put in place will still stand you in good stead if you decide to go down the assisted fertility route. So, and at the end of the day, it's just going to make you healthier. I can't always say that you're going to get a baby at the end. Nobody can ever say that. Even with the IVF clinics with the best results, nobody can guarantee a baby. But at least with nutritional therapy, you're in the best place to conceive and you've got the best health afterwards.
Right, and you've also got the advice from your good self. And you say on the website it's more generic advice. Does the advice get more tailored for individual people? So somebody wants to come and see you, because one thing presumably you can't cover in the website is what people already eat. You can't talk to them about, so yes, because you're eating, not only should be eating more of this, you should be eating less of something else.
Yeah, and it's going back to that breadth.
Yeah, so is there something that people should be avoiding if they're looking to increase fertility?
I would say junk food. So if you're having lots of takeaways, they tend to be cooked in lots of inflammatory oils like vegetable oils, and that's not good for the system. Also, a lot of sugar is inflammatory as well. Alcohol, of course, being the main one for men and women, and smoking. So there's a lot of generic stuff, but it's with fertility, it's so much down to the specific individual, whether it's a low egg count that we can help boost that, or whether the eggs that you've got left, we need to make them as genetically robust as possible. Or with men, it's a case of motility or counts, and we can do things with that. Also, I have a lot of clients with polycystic ovary syndrome, which makes it more difficult for them to get pregnant, but through diet and focusing specifically on that condition, then it increases their chances.
That's great advice. And the advice you gave about the foods and activities to avoid, that applies for everything, doesn't it? Not just to increase the chances of conceiving. It
does. And the whole 80-20 thing, so generally fast foods, as long as they're a small proportion of your diet, it's okay. But I think when it's coming down to fertility, actually you want to throw everything at it that you can. It's going back to the control thing. It's also about giving yourself the best chance to get the nutrients that you can do. And if by having a proper homemade meal as opposed to a delivery meal, that's one more meal that you've got that you're using to increase your chances of getting all the nutrition you need.
Because you've got total control over what goes in that.
Yeah.
And we should be able to get the information from your website about what's good things and what's bad things.
We can. There's also a free fertility recipe download if you wanted to. So I've put together 10 recipes that are specifically to help fertility, that are full of things like zinc for men, iron, protein,
so it's micronutrients as well as macronutrients.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, so they can download that from my website as well. That's just quite a nice, fun thing to do to make sure that they are getting the breadth of nutrients they need.
And again, give us the website just one more time.
thislifenutrition.co.uk.
thislifenutrition.co.uk. One question that I have for you, Saffron, is you mentioned before IBS, I think, irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah.
Is that something that you have particular nutritional therapy strategies for?
Yeah, there is. There's the thing with IBS is irritable bowel syndrome, but the digestive system is so complicated. Your digestive process starts in the mouth with your salivary enzymes, your chewing action, and obviously it goes all the way right down to the other end via the stomach, the pancreas, the liver, the gallbladder, the small colon, the large colon. All of these areas have roles to play. And if it goes wrong in just one of those areas, then it sets up problems further down the line. So IBS is a very complicated issue to resolve. And it's like fertility. It's like anything, really. Everybody is an individual. But when it comes to IBS, there are so many areas where things can just go slightly wrong. The important thing is to go and see your GP. That's the thing with nutritional therapy. It's an adjunct to the GP. It's not a replacement. So the first thing is to go and see a GP, have the tests done that they do, the endoscopies, the colonoscopies, have all of that done. And then if you're not getting anywhere, come and see a nutritional therapist to see how we can help alongside the GP as well. So generally the nutritional therapist's protocol for helping with IBS is called the 4 or 5R protocol, which would be remove. So if there's anything particularly causing problems, it's a big thing at the moment for wheat allergies or gluten intolerance. Yeah. So we would recommend removing the product initially that's causing you issues. You might be reintroducing them later, but to help the gut heal, you remove those. You can replace, so that would be the second R, which if someone's got low stomach acid, you want to build the stomach acid levels up, or if they're missing some of the digestive enzymes, you can help replace those as well. The third R would be restore. And then we're looking at the gut microbiome. So the gut microbiome is a massive area of interest and of research at the moment, which is where we're looking at the good bacteria versus the bad bacteria. We still don't know all of the good bacteria, and actually if you have too many of the good bacteria, that can be a bad thing. So it's finding a fine balance in that area. And the fourth R would be rebuild. So if someone's got a lot of inflammation in the gut, for whatever reason, it could be too many bad bacteria producing too many gases, upsetting the gut wall. Then you would look at rebuilding the gut wall with things like zinc and vitamin A for mucus development, mucus production. So it's very complicated. And again, every person is individual depending on where their problem lies.
That's fascinating. Is IBS just one disease, or is it a collection of different syndromes?
It's one of those umbrella terms.
Right.
It's one of those umbrella terms that quite often we don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong in your gut, somewhere from the mouth to the anus, and we're going to call it IBS. What we do as nutritional therapists, we quite often offer tests that aren't available on the NHS. So the GP will do certain blood tests and check for certain things, but we will go to private labs where we'll check. You have to pay for this isn't free, which is why the GP can't do it, but they will check for the levels of the good and bad bacteria. They will check for the levels of your digestive enzymes, stomach acid levels. They will check for markers of inflammation, and there's also something called zonulin, which, if you've heard of leaky gut syndrome, where people develop lots of food sensitivities as particles of food cross across into the bloodstream that shouldn't be. It's because the tight junctions in their gut wall are spreading apart.
I've heard of leaky gut syndrome, but I haven't heard of zonulin before. What a great word. It's been with a Z.
It does.
Wow.
So zonulin is a protein that controls how these little junctions open and close.
Wow. I'll look that one up. I like words to begin with Z. So there you go.
Okay. So yeah, and if you have high levels of zonulin, that would indicate a leaky gut, which we could then address with repairing the gut wall.
Right. So when you first meet someone, presumably one of the things that you need to take a understanding of is what their typical diet is. So
yes.
Do you ask them to bring with them a record of what they've eaten for the past week or something like that?
Generally, for my private clients, I like to see a 3-day food diary at a minimum. It'd be really nice if people would do more than that, but generally I'm lucky to get 3 days. So that would include everything they've eaten and drunk, and at what point, and also if they had any, specifically if it was a gut issue, what symptoms they get after eating, see if we can see any correlation. But quite often, if I'm seeing someone just for a chat, the minimum I'll do is, sit down and tell me what you ate and drank yesterday from when you got up to when you went to bed, and is this a typical day? Yeah.
And if that person's been logging it on some kind of app, maybe for MyFitnessPal, does that help?
Oh, absolutely. So they can share their diaries with me. I run a weight loss club as well, and I will quite often help people by saying, go on MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal can be tedious, but once you get the same foods in there, it becomes easier. And it also has the advantage of me looking over their shoulder. I can log on and actually see what they're eating. Right. So those apps have the benefit of making people more mindful as well, so that you're not just mindlessly grazing. You're thinking, oh, actually, if I pick this up, I have to log it and I have to write it down. So they have a double benefit.
So it focuses people's minds.
Absolutely.
If they have to write it down, then they
might think twice about eating it.
Yes, which is always a good thing to do, isn't it? Interesting questions just coming from Hilary in High Wycombe. Hilary, thank you for listening, and thank you for your question. Hilary asks, and I'm assuming it's a female Hilary, it could be a male Hilary, to become a nutritional therapist, how would I go about it?
Okay, you need to look for a degree that's been accredited by my governing body, which is called BANTS, which is the British Association of Nutritional Therapists. I did my degree at the University of West London. I did it, I was raising children, so I did it part-time. My background is in IT, so I swapped over from IT to nutritional therapy. So you can just look online and make sure that the university is running it is accredited by BANTS, and it's an accredited degree. It took me years to do mine part-time because I kept having children in the middle of it, but I think you can do it. I think you can do it 4 years part-time.
So it's not a thing you'd study at university straight from school? No,
you can do, absolutely. Yeah, you can absolutely study for a degree in nutritional therapy straight from school. Or you can study to be a dietitian. The benefit there is that you will get a job in the NHS, but it is a longer degree to be a dietitian. And again, to become a nutritionist, if you wanted to work in industry, that again is a different degree. So you need to make sure you know which degree it is that you're looking at and what you actually want to achieve at the end of it.
And I also guess that one of the differences between those three routes is that a nutritional therapist will tend to be self-employed.
Absolutely. We're pretty much all sole traders, although I am employed by Nuffield as well. I work for Nuffield half the week.
Right.
So you do get some people employing nutritional therapists, but they're very few and far on the ground. So you do tend to set up as a sole trader, as an independent. Whereas if you become a dietitian or a nutritionist, then you go off and work either for the NHS or in the private sector.
Right, great. So the answer to your question, Hilary, is look for a part-time course. I assume that you're an adult, so you look for a part-time course.
You can do a full-time course as well.
Oh, full-time course?
Approved by BANT.
Yeah, and which college did you do yours at?
University of West London.
University of West London. So that's one of the colleges that offers it,
Yes.
which might be convenient. You never know, because Hilary lives in High Wycombe, so it might be fairly convenient.
Yeah.
So would you recommend it as is it a satisfying profession?
I love it. I really do. It's fascinating because
you're your own boss to start off with, as the self-employed like, which is what I am as well. So it's your own boss, which is very good. So you can use your time when you want to do whatever you want. You can come and do MarlowFM if you want to. But also you can control your own activities as well, and how involved you get and how removed you want to be from it. But what do you find as being the greatest benefits to yourself for it?
Well, I was at a seminar talking to a fellow nutritional therapist last week, and we both agreed that the most rewarding part of our job is sitting down listening to people. If you end up becoming a dietitian in the NHS, as with GPs, you're very time governed to how much time you can spend with each client in front of you. Whereas with a nutritional therapist, I have an hour to sit down and listen to them. And it's not always just diet. There'll be a lot of life factors coming in. And someone said to me the other week that she just felt better just for the chance to actually to be able to talk and for someone to listen and to take their symptoms seriously, as opposed to, well, we've done lots of tests, we can't find anything, they're implying it's in your mind. We can actually listen and take into consideration the whole package, the lifestyle, what's going on, stress levels, sleep levels, everything. So it's a very satisfying job.
So I suspect when you meet somebody, at least the first 75% of your time is you not giving any advice at all. It's you listening and asking questions. I do a lot of listening. You have to listen a lot and formulate your own conclusions.
Yeah.
And then go back with suggestions.
Yeah. So the way I work is I spend an hour gathering information about family health history, because there's a lot of familial links with a lot of things. So, for example, I was hypothyroid. There's a lot of that in my family. So you ask about family health, you ask about lifestyle, you ask about their, whether there's a lot of stresses in their life, as well as diet, as well as exercise. The whole thing comes in.
A handful of top tips for everybody, not people suffering with any particular issue or no particular concerns, but something that everybody can take away as a few words of wisdom from you to help in their nutrition.
Okay, well, as I've already said, omega-3 is a big one. We're an island nation, we don't get enough. Either eat your oily fish or your walnuts or your linseeds, or supplement with a good brand.
It's walnut specifically, is it? So other nuts?
Yeah, walnuts are higher in, or hemp. Hemp seed is another one that you can just use cold, don't cook with it. But hemp oil is a good one, linseeds and walnuts are good vegetarian sources. Otherwise, get your oily fish. The other one is get your 7 a day, 5 a day bare minimum, 7 a day if you can do it, 2 fruit, 5 veg. And again, it's not about amount, it's about the breadth. So different fruit and veg every time you go food shopping and getting all of the colours that you can get. And the other thing is vitamin D. Again, because, the weather is what it is in the UK, we don't get, and we're all sedentary and we all work inside now. We don't get out enough. So you need to get out for 20 minutes during the midday sun between 11 and, say, 2, between April and, say, September. That will get you enough vitamin D and also helps lower cholesterol.
Even if it's cloudy, you get it.
Even if it's cloudy, you'll be getting some vitamin D, but you need to be outside for that to happen. And like I said, it also lowers cholesterol because we need cholesterol to make vitamin D, so that's a double bonus. Right. So go outside, get your sunshine, get your kids outside as well, put sunscreen on them after they've been out for 15 minutes, not before they go out. Make sure they get lots of vitamin D.
That's great. And finally, just go through your website one more time.
thislifenutrition.co.uk.
thislifenutrition.co.uk. Saffron, thanks again for being my guest today.
Thank you.
You're listening to Mid Morning Matters on MarlowFM 97.5.